Again, not just someone's mum, not just someone's wife. One night after dinner, Kay leaned in while our husbands talked about football and said, "We don't mind sharing if it makes things less lonely." I laughed, but it caught in my throat. Was she joking, or was that an invitation? I didn't ask. I didn't want to know the answer, but I thought about it. Thought about it a lot. It sat in the back of my mind like a secret drawer I wasn't supposed to open until one night. I did. The kids were asleep. My husband had passed out early headphones and back turned to me, and my phone lit up. "Okay, we're in the tub. Come if you can. No pressure, no emojis, no winks, just that." My hands trembled. I sat there for 10 minutes staring at the screen like it was a loaded question. I thought about my kids upstairs, their tiny pajamas laid out for school the next day. I thought about my husband snoring in the other room, how we hadn't in 3 months. And I thought about Kay laughing in the steam, Jordan shirtless, maybe wine glasses sweating on the deck. And for once I didn't want to think anymore. I just moved. I slipped on a robe, walked barefoot down the hall, and I went in silence without a word to anyone. The night air was cool, but the water was warm. Steam curled above the surface like breath from something alive. They were already in Kay with her hair piled up, Jordan bare-chested, leaning back like this was just another evening. I slipped in quietly, said I couldn't stay long. Kay handed me a glass of wine, eyes soft, smile gentle. Music hummed low from a speaker on the deck. Something slow, something that made silence thicker. For a while we just talked about nothing, about everything. Laughter echoing under the stars like none of us had anything to lose. Then Jordan's leg brushed against mine, just barely. But it didn't move. Neither did I. Kay watched and smiled. Not the kind of smile that asks permission, the kind that already knows the answer. I went home an hour later, climbed into bed beside my husband, his back to me as always, my still warm from the water, my heart louder than it should have been. After that night, I started going over more often. Always late, always when my husband was working late or had passed out early. Sometimes it was just me and Kay, sometimes just Jordan, but most nights it was all three of us. Nothing physical happened, not yet, but the conversations got slower, the eye contact longer, started to linger. Jordan would pour my drink before anyone else's. Kay would compliment the way my sweater clung to my waist. It was subtle, but constant. They made me like I was becoming something again. Not the mum who couldn't button her jeans, not the wife who cried in the laundry room, just me, whole scene. One night, Kay leaned in while Jordan was lighting candles, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't have to pretend with us." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't want to. I just let the words sit there like a secret waiting to be claimed. I started fantasizing about being wanted, about being watched. Not by the man I married who no longer saw me, but by two people who made me like I still mattered, like I could still be desirable without explanation. And that's when Kay said it. Her voice calm, certain. They wanted to watch, and I didn't say no. The storm came without warning, one of those nights where the sky split open without apology, rain hitting the windows like it wanted. My husband was away on a work trip. I was already at Kay and Jordan's house. I'd offered to help with the kids. Their youngest had a fever. Mine had spilled juice on the couch. Chaos as usual. But by the time the last lullaby played and all the tiny limbs were tucked in, the house fell still. The lights flickered once, then cut completely. Darkness wrapped everything in a kind of hush. Kay lit candles. Jordan brought out a bottle of wine. He said they'd been saving for something special. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch. Shadows danced on the walls. There was no music this time, just thunder in the distance and the sound of our breathing. Kay poured slowly. Her hand brushed mine, and then she didn't away. She leaned in close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. She did ask. She didn't need to. Her lips mine like she was remembering something we'd never actually done. And I froze. For a moment, the room spun. My brain screamed, "What are you doing?" But my leaned in. It was slow, soft, like something sacred. Jordan didn't move. He just watched. His eyes calm, like he'd always known this would happen. Kay backed just slightly, her forehead resting against mine, and I could her heart beating through her. My hands trembled as they found hers. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Their laughter faded. Our glances became. There was no rush, no pressure, just surrender. It wasn't wild, it wasn't dirty, it was reverent, like we'd all been waiting for someone to just say yes. And somewhere between the storm and the silence, I saw it in the mirror behind the couch. I saw myself, and I didn't look away. I woke up in my own bed. Sheets tangled around my legs, the house quiet, saved for the distant hum of the fridge and a bird tapping at the window. For a moment, I wondered if it was a dream, if I'd imagined at all. The candlelight, the way felt like confession, but I could still smell the chlorine on my arms, still the curve of Kay's hand on my ribs, and something deeper, a shift, like part of me had slipped out the night before and hadn't come back in. My phone lit up. One message, "We're still your friends. No regrets, Kay." I stared at it for a long time, not knowing if I should relief or rage or nothing at all. Downstairs I made coffee, poured 2 mugs like I always do. My husband came into the kitchen, hair still messy from sleep. He my forehead. First time in months. I almost spilled the coffee. Later that week, they invited us over again. Backyard barbecue, kids laughing, grill smoking, the world turning like nothing had changed. Kay waved from across the yard like she hadn't me. Jordan nodded once, didn't meet my eyes, not once. I spent the whole evening trying not to look too long in any one direction. My husband placed his hand on the small of my back while we stood in line for drinks. Just a gentle barely there. And I flinched just for a second, but it was enough to it. The difference, the distance. Nothing exploded. No fights, no questions, just silence. And silence, I've learned, is its own kind of storm. I still wash the same dishes, fold the same laundry, tuck the same little bodies into bed at night with the same lullabies. But I'm not the same. Something in me cracked open that night, and I haven't been able to close it. I didn't leave my husband. I didn't pack a bag or scream accusations or beg for more. I stayed. I smiled through PDA meetings. I held his hand in public when I had to. I listened when he spoke, nodded in the right places, even laughed once or twice. But I wasn't really there, not all of me, because a piece of me was still in that room, in that flicker of candlelight, with their eyes on me, wanting, and me finally wanting to be seen. I don't know if I betrayed my marriage or if I just remembered what it meant to alive. There was no plan, No big decision, just a moment. And in that moment, I said yes. Not with words, but with breath, with stillness, with the way I didn't away, with the way I let their gaze unwrap me like I was something worth opening. I didn't chase them, I didn't confess. I didn't destroy the house I built with my bare hands. But I did open a door and walk through it. And now, even when everything looks the same, the floors mopped, the bills paid, the dinner made, I different, not better, not worse, just different. They wanted to watch, and I wish the same. Is that wrong or just honest? Have you ever wanted something? Not because it was right, not because it made sense, but because in that moment it made you real. I'm not asking for approval, I'm not even asking for forgiveness. I just want to know I'm not the only one. The only one who's ever looked around at a perfectly built life, the kids, the car, the calendar full of plans, and still felt hollow. Still felt the ache to be seen, to be chosen. Not out of obligation, but out of desire. Have you ever reached for something knowing it might hurt someone, but did it anyway because you were already hurting in silence? Share your truth in the comments. Not for me, for you. Sometimes speaking it out loud is the only way we survive it. If this story stirred something inside you, if it made you remember or question, then don't keep that silence to yourself. Like this story. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold, where silence turns into stories too heavy to carry alone. Tap the bell. The next tale might echo something you have never dared say aloud.